Hello, I'm Kaden Hankey from AHS-TV, and I'm here with Mr. Brian Coil to learn about his life in this AHS Spotlight. So, Mr. Brian Coil, what class do you have here at AHS?
This year I have economics, AP economics, and a U.S. History 2 class.
Boring.
Depends on what you're interested in.
How do you use economics in your day-to-day life?
Personally, how I use it? A lot of it's awareness. So looking at the events going on, talking about inflation, we got an election coming up. A lot of that comes directly back to economic principles and the money in your pocket.
How would you say that the economy is doing lately?
It depends on how you want to judge it. You could argue in some ways that we're recovering from COVID. In other ways, we're still lagging way behind with inflation going up so much and wages being increasing less than that. I think the average person actually is worse off than they were.
See, I usually look at, whenever I'm thinking about inflation, I look at gas prices. Anytime I'm driving, I just go, how much is that? It's probably lower somewhere else. And that's as far as it goes for me. What other things do you do here at the AHS?
I'm also the AHS Quiz Bowl advisor.
What's that?
Quiz Bowl, that is our building's academic competition team. We go head-to-head against other schools in our region on questions on anything that could be from any course you take to pop culture, music, anything like that.
How good is your Quiz Bowl team?
This year, I'd say we were pretty good. We took a double championship. Varsity and JV won the ICAL League. That's the Indiana County League.
Awesome. And how do you fundraise Quiz Bowl?
How do we fundraise? Well, if you look behind me, there's a nice banner. We sell meat sticks out of my room on an ongoing basis here to pay for our trips.
So back to inflation. What happened to the prices of those meat sticks?
Well, like everything else, they went up. They used to be $1. Now they're $1.50 because shipping went up. The cost of the product went up. So here we are.
Ridiculous. What's the chances of me getting a beef stick after this interview?
Depends if you have money or not.
What if I pay you back tomorrow?
Not going to happen.
Mr. Brian Coil, I waited, how long was it? 30 days? 30 days I came into this classroom saying, Mr. Coil, can I have a beef stick and pay you back tomorrow? It took me 30 days until he gave me a beef stick, and I paid him back the next day.
I pitied you, and you were persistent.
I call that dedication.
Okay.
So what other things do you do with your life outside of working?
Outside of work, I have a farm. I have a family with 5 kids. I'm the squadron commander for the Clarion Civil Air Patrol, involved in my church, just generally busy.
How does that farm benefit you for like saving up money and spending less?
I grow a lot of our own food, meat anyway. We have cattle and sheep and chickens and so on. That's money we don't have to spend at the grocery store.
And grocery stores, do you often check like sales, like weekly ads and stuff, or do you just go in and see what's there?
That's a question better for my wife, actually. She does most of the grocery shopping, but I know we have a set list of things we generally use when we get groceries every 2 weeks. And yeah, prices have gone up. You change brands if you need to or make substitutions just to stay in line with your budget goals. And
do you have any advice for students or younger people who aren't really sure how to move forward in the rising economy and like how to budget properly?
Budgeting is definitely a life skill. You need to look at the amount of income you have or the amount of money you have on hand and then prioritize. You need to look at what you really need to spend money on versus what you want to spend money on. A lot of our spending is truly frivolous. They're just things we'd like to have as opposed to, do I really need that or my resources better spent somewhere else?
So one thing your class taught me whenever I took it was that, or one thing I guess that stuck with me was when people use cards, they don't have the same amount of like fear whenever they use money. Like they're actually handing something over, and that really affects the mind. So even now, I don't use cash that much, but whenever I use my card, I think of the cash being handed. That way I don't spend as much, but I'm still low on my money.
You're right, though, in that relationship. I took a course by Dave Ramsey dealing with that, and they've shown that when you spend cash, it actually stimulates the same part of your brain as the pain receptors do.
Yeah.
Whereas a card, you have a disconnect from it because in your mind, even though you know it's money, you don't associate it with, oh, that's my money I'm spending right now.
Yeah, you just see a number on your screen whenever you go and check.
Yeah, credit cards can be dangerous.
Well, I got to get a credit card soon to build up credit for college and stuff. How would you, like, any tips for that?
Basically, I'll give you the advice I gave my son. View it as a necessary evil. I like the Dave Ramsey viewpoint that a credit score is basically an I love debt score. It's how well you handle owing money. It's something you should try to avoid as much as you can. If you do get a credit card, because they are convenient, and I use one, I admit that, but you always pay it off in full every month. Don't spend money you don't have. Don't look at it as borrowing it till later, because now you're going to pay that amount back with interest. If you can use it and not pay interest, then you can take advantage of cash back and other incentives for having the credit card.
So usually the advice I hear is like only spend it on gas or like necessary groceries, and make sure you have the money in your bank account before you actually go spend it. That way you're building up credit without actually being in debt.
Right. It comes down to personal responsibility, but you also have it as, think of it as a safety net. If something, you had an emergency situation, say you're away on a trip and the transmission went out of your car, okay, you can get it fixed and then work out a plan to pay it back, but at least you could get out of that emergency situation and back to where you need it to be.
Okay, that makes sense.
What else do you remember from the class that you've used in your life?
Oh man. There's a lot, but you're putting me on the spot here.
Turnabout's fair play.
Yeah. I'm trying to think. One of the things that sticks with me that I can't ever remember the name of is people who like get things for free, or like they're like mooching off of people, you know what I mean? You build the bridge and the walkers, people who walk go on it.
You're
That
talking about the
metaphor?
free rider problem
Free rider.
with public goods, the idea that you can use it even if you don't contribute to it.
Exactly.
We actually had a really good discussion in my econ classes the other day about that with a new emerging free rider problem. The idea of roads and bridges and paying for them. Pennsylvania, you were talking about gasoline and the prices of it earlier. We have one of the highest gas taxes in the country. But each year, of the last few, we've been bringing in less money each year. Why do you think that is?
People are starting to walk and bike more.
No. Think about the cars we're driving. What are they doing? What type of cars are we switching to?
We're switching towards electric, right?
Right. Do electric cars use gasoline?
No.
So what are they not paying?
Gas taxes.
Gasoline taxes. So we have to come up with a way now to pay for that maintenance on those roads and bridges. How do you recapture it from a vehicle that's not paying a direct tax on it?
So electric cars are, in a sense, free riders.
Exactly. So that there's real world economics for you right there. I know our legislature has been looking at ways to increase the amount of funding we have, because I mean, we're all going to agree Pennsylvania has the best roads in the world, right?
Oh, yes, of course.
So we need more money to fix those issues. Well, if we're switching away from gasoline-powered vehicles, or even if we don't switch away, just getting more efficient, so you're driving more miles, more wear and tear on the roads for the same amount of gas, there's less money to put into that fund to pay for these things.
Are there any ways that we could improve the roads with stronger materials? That would cost more money, but
Well,
would it be beneficial?
that's a debate. That's an actual debate you could have. Is it worth the extra upfront cost to maybe have a longer wearing surface and so on? And we've tried that. But the issue still comes down to having the money to make any of those changes.
Yeah.
So you have to have that ongoing source of funding. So real world example, again, you're talking about that free rider problem. So what would you rather do? Would you rather, here's the two proposals basically they've come up with. Would you rather pay an annual fee per mile you drove? Or would you rather pay a flat additional fee when you, say, register your vehicle each year, if it's electric?
Is there any way to incorporate like electric charging stations at gas stations and still be paying for that electric?
Well, even if you did that, the majority of people, I would think, I mean, I'm not an expert in this, would be charging at their home still.
That's true. So I don't like either one of those pay per mile or upfront fee.
Well, that's the problem you run to. Anytime you talk about the government paying for something, no one ever wants to pay more money.
Exactly.
And there's pros and cons to both those arguments. If you pay per mile, you could argue that's fair because those that drive more make more use of the roads and bridges, more wear and tear, they should pay more.
Please excuse the interruption. At this time, can all 8th graders and their teachers please report to the auditorium? 8th graders and their teachers.
Got that
Good
out.
luck, 8th graders.
But by the same logic, the areas that, like, say we live in the rural areas, you're going to end up paying more money because it takes us longer to get to most of the things we need, grocery stores and so on. Whereas if you look at a city area, everything's closer, less mileage. But then you also think of, oh, you bought an electric vehicle to spend less money on gasoline. Yes, you're still going to have the cost of the fuel savings, but that tax, all right, now you got to write a check each year.
What are we considering for the price of the mile, like charge per mile?
That I have no idea. Even at a low number, say we give you 2 cents a mile and you drove 10,000 miles, that's what, $200 a year? You don't notice the additional amount usually as you're buying gas, filling your tank up on a weekly basis. But if you suddenly have to pay that amount when you renew your registration or do your inspection, you're going to notice it more.
I mean, if we're doing 2 cents per mile, I'd much rather do that than the other option, because 2 cents per mile for however long, it's $200. My car takes 50 to fill up weekly. That takes me 4 weeks, and I'm at 200. So
Right.
I'm definitely saving money doing the per mile.
Right. So there's a lot of debate on which one is actually the better system, the fairer system, which is going to bring in enough resources to actually meet our maintenance needs and so on. I want to say Texas perhaps just adopted the fee version of it, where they proposed it anyway of you pay this amount. They based it on the average amount that a driver tends to pay in fuel taxes in that state, and then just recaptured it from the electric or hybrid vehicle side of things.
So if Texas is incorporating that one, but let's say Pennsylvania incorporates the mile charge per mile fee, how would that work, crossing states?
Well, you can only look at what happens in your own state when it comes to that type of fundraising. That's another one of the arguments against the miles used fee. If I live on the border and, say, work in Ohio, West Virginia, Maryland, something like that, and I do most of my driving in that state, well, now Pennsylvania is charging me for wear and tear on their roads and bridges. There's not a perfect solution. You just have to find one that does the best, quote unquote, at doing it.
I think I heard recently that you get paid the taxes for like the local county that you're in, so or that you work in.
At this time, can all ninth graders and their teachers please report to the auditorium?
Good luck, ninth graders. Anyways, you get paid taxes of the county that you work in. So like if you lived in X county but you work in Y county, you get paid.
You're talking
for
about
that.
your municipality,
Yeah.
like your township or your borough for local
Township,
taxes.
yeah.
Okay.
Could you do something like that where you live in Pennsylvania, you get the charge, but you work in Ohio, and they get the fee, or like the initial pay down fee?
I think it would be difficult to document that, like how to prove where your miles are actually driven at, because now you're into, are they going to track you at all times and know what state or what area you're driving in to document the miles? Now you're into a privacy issue and a bunch of other personal concerns.
Yeah. No, it's definitely complicated.
It is. That's why no one's fixed it yet.
Yeah. Well, that's Real World Economics with Mr. Brian Coil. I hope you had fun on this AHS Spotlight. See you next time, Mr. Brian Coil.
Thanks for having me on.